In the beginning, there was nothing but God. No sky, no land, no sea, no stars. Only the eternal presence of the Almighty. And then with a word, with a breath, he spoke, and light burst into existence. Darkness fled, and the first dawn broke across the cosmos. This was the first act of creation, the first stroke of divine artistry, and it was good. God separated the waters, raised up the land, and stretched the heavens. He shaped mountains and valleys, filled the seas with creatures great and small, and commanded the skies to teem with birds of every kind. From his infinite wisdom, he designed every detail, the curve of the rivers, the colors of the flowers, the pattern of the stars, every blade of grass, every grain of sand, placed by his hand. And then, the crowning glory of creation, man and woman, formed from the dust of the earth, shaped in the very image of God himself. They were more than just creatures. They were his children. He breathed into them the breath of life, setting them apart with purpose and identity. They were not accidents, not afterthoughts, but the very reason for the beauty around them. To them, he gave dominion, not as tyrants, but as caretakers of his masterpiece. In the heart of Eden, paradise itself, God walked with man. There was no shame, no fear, no sin, only perfect communion between Creator and creation. Yet in love, he gave them a choice. A simple tree in the midst of the garden, a boundary not meant to imprison, but to preserve. But temptation came, whispered lies in the guise of truth, and man reached for what was forbidden. With one bite, the world shifted. Sin entered, like a shadow stretching across the land. The harmony of Eden shattered, and with it, the perfect fellowship between man and God. No longer could they walk freely with him, for their innocence had been lost. The price of disobedience was exile, and with heavy hearts, they stepped beyond the gates of paradise, into a world now tainted with suffering and toil. The ground, once yielding freely, would now resist them. Life, once eternal, would now end in death. But even in judgment, there was mercy. Even in loss, there was hope, a promise whispered in the midst of the curse. One day, a Redeemer would come, a child from a woman's line who would crush the serpent's head, who would restore what was lost. Generations rose and fell. Cain, filled with jealousy, struck down Abel, and sin's grip tightened. Yet, through Noah, God preserved a remnant. The floodwaters cleansed a corrupted world, but the heart of man remained unchanged. And still, God was faithful. From the scattered nations, he called one man, Abram, to step into a promise beyond imagination. A covenant was made not just for him, but for all who would come after. Through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the foundation was laid. A people chosen, not for their greatness, but for God's glory. And from them, a nation would rise, a nation that would bear the name of Israel, a nation that would carry the light of God to the ends of the earth. Yet, Genesis is not just a story of creation, of failure, or of judgment. It is a story of grace, a story that, from the very beginning, points to redemption. For the same God who spoke light into darkness, who formed man from dust, would one day step into his creation. He would take on flesh, walk among us, and through him, what was lost would be found again. Genesis is not just history. It is the beginning of a greater story, a story that continues even now, a story that leads to a cross, to an empty tomb, to a kingdom without end. And it all started with these words, in the beginning,